Hi, my name is Eric Wensensen, and if you watch my channel, it's usually videos that I put up of music that, well, can't be found elsewhere on YouTube, and stuff from my own collection as I'm going through my archiving process. Right now, I am in the E's going through Emerson, Lake, and Palmer, so this will kind of give you an idea as I go through some of what I'm going to go through, where I'm at and what I'm doing. The reason I'm making this video is because there was a thing put out for the vinyl community called the Vinyl Tag for 2024. And I know I'm a bit late on that, but I figured still it's only a month into the new year, so might as well go ahead and get a few things together and get this done. So what the vinyl tag is, it's 20 questions that was put out by a guy named Rob Walker, who basically asking a number of questions to get mainly an idea for a video going. And so got everything gathered here, and we'll see what we can do. Hopefully, I mean, my last one that I did here was not too bad. Hopefully, this looks a little bit better. And hopefully won't have any more interruptions from my phone, which has happened a few times already. So, favorite record purchased in 2023. That would be this puppy here. I purchased this on Record Store Day. It is not a Record Store Day copy. It is an American copy. It's the Idol Race, and it is called The Birthday Party. Reason it is my favorite, I do a podcast with a man called Eric Paul Johnson, called Face the Music. Well, right now it's a pre-ELO song by song podcast. We've gone through all the songs of ELO in the last few years. Now we're going through mainly Move, Idle Race, and anything related to ELO prior. So one of the records we've just recently finished going through is The Birthday Party. And I just happened to have purchased it last year, and Record Store Day. And no, I have not listened to my copy, but going through it, it is one of those albums where you wonder why nobody knows that much about it, or where it doesn't come up on a lot of lists. It is a great psychedelic album. It does have a few singles on here, like like the Skeleton in the Roundabout, that and The End of the Road, which came out before the album. So some of this is from 67, a good portion of it's from 68. So you do have kind of a clash of 67 and 68, with it being a little bit more mature music as it goes on. Most of it is Jeff Lynne composed. Dave Pritchard is also one of the people on here that did the music, that did one of the songs as well. Eddie Offord is the engineer on this. Eddie Offord, you would know, went on to produce Emerson, Lake and Palmer, yes, and a number of other bands from the progressive rock era. Here's the back of it. You know, as it says, audition copy. This never became that popular in the UK or the US because it never got the promotion it was supposed to. Phillips was supposed to have promoted a song written by Roy Wood for the band called Here We Go Round the Lemon Tree. They decided, oh, well, Moo's going to put this on the backside of Flowers in the Rain, so we're not going to release it after a whole bunch of promotion stuff and everything. They released it in the US, didn't release it in the UK, didn't promote it in the US, so it didn't go anywhere. I Like My Toys is another single off of here. It is a great song about what would now be considered an autistic man, and his problems with getting along in the world. It was given to some guy, some DJ named Stewball, for a children's charity. And so they decided not to release it, and his version is absolutely horrid. I know he was a popular DJ in the UK, but yeah, Doesn't matter how nice you are or how great a guy you are. Sometimes you just shouldn't do certain things. But basically, yeah, ruined it. Nothing else. There's a song on there called "Follow Me, Follow." Really should have been a hit. No, Phillips didn't do anything with it. So unfortunately, it never got any of the promotion it needed, but it is something that you should take a listen to. I would consider it a forgotten 60s classic. Um, the last record bought in 2023 was this puppy, and I know you're probably going to say the price is too much for it if you can even read the price on there. But it's the first New York Dolls album. It's an original copy of it, and yeah, I might have overpaid a tiny bit. It doesn't matter. I wanted it. It was there. I grabbed it. So, I don't have their second album. Their second album was there as well, but I figured I'm just going to go ahead and get the first album because I don't have it in my collection, and it is something that I definitely needed. A band or a singer that has released two or more albums in the same year. Well, I'm just going to go with an easy one because they released these on the same day. And then after that, they didn't release anything really that great for the rest of their career. In fact, most of the career, it's been stuff that has nothing to do with their music, other than, well, a good portion of it was the fact that Axl Rose was not releasing any more music. But no, not records, but CDs. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 by Guns N' Roses. In fact, really, when it gets down to it, you cut a lot of the garbage off of these. There would have been one nice 70 something minute long album. But yeah, there is a lot of other stuff on there that nobody really needed to hear, even though it still contains a lot of good material from the band, shows the band progressing from just being a straight, messy hard rock band into being a very very professional hard rock band. But then after that, yeah, we all know what happened. They kind of fell apart, and then yeah, and Axl took forever to get Chinese Democracy out, and when came out, sounded like it should have come out 10 years beforehand. Um, Favorite decade for music. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to go with a pat answer here, which I'm sure a lot of people have answered, which would be the 1970s. However, it's going to be for a little bit of a different reason. It's going to be for all the reasons other people have mentioned on their channels, but the 1970s were the time that rock and roll matured into not in, from rock and roll to rock. I know the late 60s was that maturing process, but by the 70s, it came full circle. And the production kind of caught up with what everybody was trying to do. So the 1970s is still for me the best decade for production. Just simply because you had a bunch of people. It's not because it was analog versus digital or anything. It's just because you had people who knew what they were doing in the studio, both telling the board operator what to do, and the engineers themselves knew a lot of times what to do. It was hand in hand, and yeah, some of the best sounding albums came out of that time. It's also because the 70s it was so diverse. You started off with the end of the psychedelic era. You got in the first actual heavy metal albums. Um, Went through progressive rock, disco, punk rock, funk and soul music, but it was also the last time that jazz was also as important as it had been. This was rock and roll in the last couple decades has kind of started fading out, kind of finally hit its end, to where, yeah, there's still good bands out there and everything, but it's kind of hit a stopping point. That's what jazz did in the 70s. Some of it kind of remained creative into the early 80s, but then that 80s production took over, and that was about it. So instead of all the creativeness you had, with Miles Davis and John Coltrane and a lot of other bands that just released these weird, off the wall improvisational jazz albums in the 1970s. You got barbershop music, not barbershop, but dentist office music for the for the longest time. There's still good jazz bands out there. You got to seek them out. They're not going to be on big labels usually. You're going to have to find them. You're going to have to buy their stuff after listening to them. Listening to jazz live is still great, but nowhere near as it was in the 70s. Just like rock music right now. Yeah, a lot of times you want to find good rock music, you got to do the same these days. Go out, find the bands, buy their stuff, find them online, buy their stuff, and um, and then yeah, then you can get kind of an idea of how things are these days. But yeah, in the 1970s, everything just came together for all different sorts of music because I'm not just thinking rock music here. I'm thinking all different sorts of music um, came to came to fruition, and everything just seemed to be exciting and new at the time. Probably because things sucked so much back then. I remember it a little bit. I'm old enough to remember some of it when I was a really little kid, but yeah, it sucked. So the actual decade itself, and so and that went into the 80s too. A good portion of the 80s was not great either. So yeah, that's why a lot of the pop culture is what we are nostalgic about because there wasn't very much else to be nostalgic about at those particular times. Definitely not the clothes and the hair either decade. Um, a record by a band or a singer from Manchester. Well, I know everybody's going to be grabbing all the baggy stuff and everything else from the 1980s and 1990s, all that alternative music. So, Herman's Hermits. This one, I don't think it has. It has a version of Bus Stop on it. I don't know if this had any major hits from it, but it's got one side of the more beat music stuff and one another side of their exaggerated, um, their silly exaggerated Mancunian accent stuff. And the back cover is actually better than the front. The front is yeah. The back cover I like because yeah, it looks like you got the Beatles in there, you got Khrushchev, and you got a few other people hanging around there, probably some of them British. I see Castro in there, but some of them are probably British politicians and celebrities and everything that I would absolutely have no idea who it is. Oh, we've got Mao Zedong down there in the corner there as well. So yeah. But Herman's Hermits, yeah, they with the when you have since everything else is London and Liverpool and Birmingham and everything, yeah, they kind of came out. They were actually really, really popular back in the 1960s, believe it or not. In a lot of ways, they were just as popular as the Beatles and everybody else, especially internationally. But yeah, they kind of got stuck with that whole reputation of doing the novelties records. So even though I remember, yeah, if you remember Married with Children, Peter Noonan, I believe, was one of Al Bundy's favorite singers of all time. So, band or singer most listened to in 2023. This gets to why I mentioned my archiving. I have been archiving everything here, and you see a portion of what I got here in the background. Um, So in 2023, one artist that I did archive was Bob Dylan. Now, when I do the archiving, I try to get as many albums as possible before I hit that particular letter of the different artists I have from that letter that I really care about being a completist on. So Bob Dylan, of course, he's interesting enough. Wanted to have that. I don't have his first album. Um, his actual good album from the 1980s, I don't have. And then I don't have Triplicate, which was his third, which was a three CD thing. It was his third album that he did of the big band and crooner standards that he was doing in the 2010s. So Those are the only ones I don't have by him that were original studio albums. I don't have studio albums. I don't have the biography thing that has all the stuff that he did studio wise with the band. I don't have that. I don't have a lot of his bootleg stuff and all those other albums all the series and everything. That kind of stuff, yeah, drifts into the collection. Live stuff and that kind of stuff, it drifts into my collection. I usually concentrate a lot on studio albums. So there's plenty of Bob Dylan studio albums, and I listened to what I had, which was almost all of them. And so that took up a majority of my time in 2023 is getting through my Bob Dylan section. So, um, yeah, and most of it was worth hearing, including, I mean, some of the 80s stuff, not so much. And the songwriting went downhill. And some of that production, oh God, so, Knocked Out Loaded, that has got to be some of the worst production I have ever heard on record in my lifetime. Um, but there's still usually a gem or two on there. But yeah, 90s, of course, from um, from the late 90s, from about 97 forward, most of his stuff is worth he hit his stride again. Most of that is worth hearing. Um, then even those standards albums, some of his versions of those aren't that bad. I played his Christmas album on my radio show this year, and actually that's not too horrible either. Um, Now we're gonna go through the next one, which just show 7-inch records. So, of course, we're gonna have to represent my favorite band, The Residents. This is the Beatles play The Residents, and The Residents play the Beatles. This has Beyond the Valley of a Day in the Life, which is supposed to be the Beatles plays The Residents one. Basically, it's a whole bunch of Beatles songs and interviews and stuff just jammed together, all sampled together and put together as if the Beatles were recording a Residence song. It's one of the very earliest examples of sampling. The Residence side is them doing their version of Flying. The reason they chose that is because it was one of the few that was credited to every member of the Beatles. So they wanted to do something that was credited not just to Lennon and McCartney or to George or to Ringo, but to the entire band itself. You'll notice that this one is not a numbered copy. This is an original. This is not one of the re-releases. This is an original. And yes, I bartered with some money for it, but it says AP. Don't know if we can get that in focus there, but it says AP there where the number would normally be, where they kind of put an official stamp there. Reason is because this was an advanced promo, not one of the released versions. This was probably sold in the early 2000s to somebody when Ralph Records was clearing out their vaults. They were clearing out a whole bunch of stuff, test pressings, artwork, and everything else that they had done for all their stuff in the past because they needed money, I think. I think they were about to start working on the Demons Dance Alone stuff and tour and all that. So they were getting rid of a lot of that stuff and making it available. I'm pretty sure this is one of those items that sold during that time, and I got it on eBay a while back. I'm going to go with something the second one, I'm going to go with something very common. It's Corey Hart's Never Surrender. The reason for this is because, yeah, I hear this as the epitome of cheesy 80s-ness played in a lot of cartoons and nostalgic stuff and everything. Reason I chose this one, though, is because this is the poster sleeve. I'm not going to go and reel and open up the poster and everything. I bought this back when it came out, and always loved the song. I've actually always liked that song. And yeah, and I bought it because of the poster sleeve, even though yeah, kind of he's doing kind of a 17 or a teen beat pose on it, unfortunately. So it's not exactly something as a male, I should say, not interested in that I would post up on my wall back at the time. Plus, also, I already knew as a kid, yeah, probably shouldn't take the posters and stuff and put them on my wall because they're going to be worth money at some point. That one isn't, but it's still, it's Courtyard. It's not going to be worth a lot of money. It's still a good song though, and still just an interesting thing. On to something a little bit more obscure, The Spectrum. This is called London Bridge is Coming Down, and it's got a song on the back called Tables and Chairs, which is pretty good as well. One of the reason I chose this one is because it's about London Bridge being taken apart in London and moved over to Lake Havasu, Arizona, where I'm not from Lake Havasu, but I'm from Arizona. So I found this in a thrift store at one point. I had no idea what it was. I just went, Spectrum. Okay, that sounds psychedelic. I buy this. But yeah, it's a fun little song. It kind of incorporates London Bridges falling down, but it's basically just a song about moving the bridge, and it's rather fun. Another rather fun kind of psychedelic song is this one, The Forum, and it's called Trip on Me. It's got Sunday on the back. I don't think I've ever listened to the backside, but this is co-written by Les Baxter, jazz musician, easy listening, exotica, bachelor pad, space age bachelor pad stuff. Produced by Norm Patner and Les Baxter as well, released on Mira, which recognize that label. That's one that the Lee's version of Hey Joe was released on. So it was an independent label, released a few interesting garage rock titles and stuff. But yeah, this is I didn't know it's on YouTube. It is a cash in, but it's actually a rather good psychedelic pop song, kind of a bubblegum type thing, but it's a lot of fun, kind of like Naturally Stoned. I mean, the avant-garde it was not exactly, um, yeah, because it was Chuck Woolery as the lead singer of it. So we're not exactly talking a lot of street cred there, but still fun, kind of bubblegum psychedelic song. Next one, Musica Loco. This is called Fire Baby. Backside, even though it says 7-0 International, which is the name of the record company, it's actually the instrumental version of this. The way I heard about this one, this is a band that was from Sierra Leone. In the 2000s, I got a promotional copy of an album by a guy named Dr. Dynamite, who was the lead singer of this, and it had the single on there, except his copy sounded like it had been dragged all the way to the US from Sierra Leone. This is a British copy, so it's a lot better sounding, a lot better copy, but yeah, it's not exactly an easy to find one. It's Musica Loco was also the kind of like music style they were trying to do. It's kind of a reggae style combined with Afrobeat. It's a really, really good song though. That needs to be checked out. And also Dr. Dynamite's entire album that he released in the late 2000s is worth checking out as well. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us. He's been gone for a few years, but left behind some great music. This next one, and yes, this is the price tag on what I paid for it at Zia Records back in, I believe, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. Syd Barrett, Octopus. Yes, $3.99. How did I get it for $3.99? Well, for the longest time, Zia basically said they sold used records, but they said, we're not a collector's place. They wouldn't put collector's prices on the records. They would just put the records out there, and whatever price they thought people would pay for it. So it's Syd Barrett. So of course, instead of $1.99, they put $3.99 on it. And of course, yeah, it is an original. I bought about $70 worth of records that day when I bought that. And I bought that along with a whole bunch of other stuff. Some guy had just gotten rid of his entire collection, sold it there. And yeah, they just priced it for a whole bunch of ridiculous prices. This was about $1.99 or a $2.99 bought on the same purchase. The Dickies Nights in White Satin, and kind of get that there where it's not reflecting so much. I just take it out so it can be seen a little bit easier. Yeah, the reason why this is worth some money is because, well, yeah, you might see something about the cover of Nights in White Satin that would cause a little bit of controversy. So, yeah, this cover, it was released by A&M Records. This is not an independent label. This is A&M Records released this thing. So, yeah, it did not go over well. Because believe it or not, even in the 1980s, there were certain limits on what you would want to put on there. And so they quickly yanked that out of the record stores and put a more generic, nice cover for it, a little less punk rock, I should say. Choose 4 music-related people to attend an imaginary dinner party. Well, this is going to go into the next question, but this is going to be Leonard Cohen, Shane MacGowan, Joey Ramone, and I'd also say Kate Bush. Reason for all of them is I'm a writer, not really a songwriter or anything like that, but a prose writer, article writer. And Cohen and McGowan were 2 of my biggest influences. So, and Jerry Ramone would just be cool. He writes some good stuff. He'd just be cool to have there, just talk about his experience with the Ramones and everything. And Joey would be the one, either Joey or Marky would be the ones I'd want to speak with from the band, most likely, or maybe Tommy. Yeah, because no, Johnny, Johnny didn't strike me as somebody I'd want to sit down and have a major conversation with. And Dee Dee struck me as somebody who would probably steal my television set. So, um, but even though I love that band so much, yeah, that's gonna be one of the things that's gonna be coming up here in a few moments. But yeah, but mainly to speak with them about writing. Kate Bush as well. Kate Bush about writing and producing and everything like that. She has a very unique writing style, and it's a lot of and it's very interesting. And plus, also, she's done some directing and everything of her own music videos, and she did some of the best videos in the 1980s. All of them would have some great stories to tell, and they lived some great lives. Why is Bob Dylan not in there? Well, I know Dylan's a great writer and everything, but I don't think I think that he probably wouldn't accept the invitation, just simply because, yeah, he probably wouldn't think that it was worth his time or something like that. Now the musician that passed away in 2023, so like I said, we're getting into that. Shane MacGowan, of the Pogues. Um, so, a lot of his songs that he wrote are favorites of mine. I mean, I know Fairy Tale of New York gets played every single year in the UK for Christmas. It didn't get played here very much until recently. And it is an amazing song. But beyond that, A Pair of Brown Eyes, his version of the Pogues version of and the band played Waltzing Matilda. Um, he's got I mean, the band released 2 of my favorite albums of the 1980s, Rum Sodomy and the Lash, and If I Should Fall from Grace with God. And almost Thousands Are Sailing. That is one of the best written songs ever. Uh let's see. Rainy Night in Soho. That's the one I'm also trying to think of. Some great music, some great singing, and well, it wasn't the greatest singer, but he sang for what he was doing, and the music was excellent as well as the writing. Um, Favorite country for producing music? This is not out of misguided patriotism, but it is the United States. Why? Because again, I'm not just thinking rock and roll music. You want to say rock and roll music? Yeah, I'll give you the UK. But if you want to say music in general, it's the United States because we've had so many people come here from so many different places. and it's just all mixed into something that and into all these different forms of music that are just so diverse and have influenced so many different countries, including the countries where some of it came from. So it is just because of that diversity over the existence of our country that I would say that the United States is the best place for music in general. Um, but yeah, if you want to get straight into just rock and roll music, yeah, the UK when it comes to rock music, yeah, they hands down would win that because they've always been a lot more creative with it. But choose 3 vinyl communities channels discovered in 2023. Well, I'm going to have to admit, I don't know. I've been watching the Noble Records one forever, but I know that wasn't 2023. Robert Fithen is one I just discovered, and that's actually kind of why I'm doing this because he did his own VinylTag, and I've been listening to his stuff, and well, I love the sense of humor that he has with a lot of this, and he also approaches a lot of this stuff a lot more unique than some of the other ones. So I'm not going to be able to really come up with 3 of them, but yeah, I'm gonna say keep watching Noble Records and definitely take a look at Robert Fithen's, and I'll have to take a look at Rob Walker since he's the guy who came up with this particular list. Record bought as a teenager. Well, sorry for turning my back here. We're gonna go with the Ramones. I think I found this at a Goodwill back in the 1980s. It's still in pretty good condition. I've listened to the hell out of this thing over the years, but yeah, Rocket to Russia, best Ramones album, one of the best albums of the 1970s period. I was going to choose Dead Kennedys, Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death, but really I decided to go with something I actually had on a record since I was a teenager because the Dead Kennedys one I had as a cassette back when I originally bought it back in my teens. Um, a funk or soul record. Well, you might know them for Word Up, but they were a funk and soul band. It's Cameo. They stripped down quite a bit in membership before Word Up came out. This particular one is from 1980, so a few years before they had their big hit. It's called Feel Me, and does not have a song on here called Feel Me. So, but it does have. Oh, it actually does. Sorry about that. It does. Keep It Hot though is the one I really like off of here. This was still a lot of disco influenced soul music and funk music and everything, but they were one of the best funk bands around. I decided to go with them because everybody's going to go for Funkadelic or for a few other ones. Yeah, but Cameo is somebody that is worth checking out. They have a lot more than just that 80s hit or the couple 80s hit where they're with the cod piece and all that. And then a record that everybody has and a record that nobody has. Well, I have no idea how I ended up with it, but I think we were just kind of issued this back in the 90s. Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. Um, it just appears in record collections. I know I could have gone Frampton Come Alive because that whole joke in Reality Bites about being issued that at birth, but no, this wasn't issued at birth. This just kind of at some point materialized in your record collection. Kind of like Queen's greatest hits have left on the floor of a car, if you ever read the actual book version of Good Omens. One that nobody has. Now, trying to find I was trying to find a album I have, well, a record I have that just says Stag Music on it. It's somewhere in my 78s. I haven't listened to it yet, so I don't know what type of music's on there, but it's for a stag film. Instead, though, since I couldn't find it and I didn't want to go digging through all my 78s, I'm going with this guy, which is Big Black Nun. And it's a song called Throwing Roses. Cocoons on the Backside. Both songs are good. They are an alternative band from the early 1990s. They were from New York, and they probably should have been a lot more popular than they were. But I think they broke up before they could ever actually get a. They may have got one album out or one CD out, but yeah, they broke up before anything big could ever happen with them. But yeah, it's one of those. I wouldn't say nobody has it, but to have it, you either had to have gotten this in a promotion for your radio station, or you had to have been local. This um, actually I got it in either way, but kind of the promotion thing because ASU's radio station, KASR at the time, had dumped a bunch of singles at a local thrift store. And of course, I just saw a whole bunch of singles of indie bands and went, hey, how much for this? And they just let me have it for a complete price. It was something ridiculously little. But I got a whole lot of great music out of that. So about any of most of the stuff that I pulled out of there could be in this list of stuff that maybe not a whole lot of, I wouldn't say nobody has, but not a whole lot of other people have. I can't ever find something that nobody has because somebody else has to have something. Unless it was made specifically for me, which I do have a couple things of that, but that's on CD, so I wanted to go with a record. Um, so the other one, next one is a record by a female artist that I bought in 2023. Well, I was very happy to find this one. This one popped up on eBay, and it's one I've been wanting for a while. It is an Italian singer named Mina, and the song's called Zoom Zoom Zoom. This is from 1969, I think, or 68. Reason I wanted it is because Alamo Drafthouse played the video for this usually before movies, and it got stuck in my head. So yeah, I wanted to go ahead and get a copy of it, and one just popped up on eBay recently from Italy, and for a decent price, where the shipping wasn't like hundreds and hundreds of, well, wasn't like ridiculous to where I um couldn't justify getting it. It was all decent price. So yeah, and especially since it's not a record that's worth a lot of money. It's just a fun Italian pop record from back in the day. Favorite video posted by me over the last year? Well, I don't post a lot of videos like this. So, and I was looking to see when the last one was, and it was 2022. So, in the last year, the favorite one that I've posted is I found I found a Dolan Ellis record. I wish it was in better condition. Dolan Ellis is the official balladeer of Arizona, and I posted him doing one of his songs called Electric Ant Hill from an album that he put out back in the 70s. And the reason why that's one of my favorites is because it's kind of redemption for him, because when we went to the Soviet Union, we were given a lot of his records to give out to people, and well, we didn't. We were a bunch of little stupid brats when I was a teenager, and a lot of those records um, got damaged or destroyed. It is kind of embarrassing, especially since these days it's right up my alley buying independent and privately released stuff that was done around, especially local stuff that was done around here. So yeah, it's a great song, and I hopefully it's a little bit of an apology to Mr. Ellis for our being a bunch of little idiots back then. Um, and so record that's a 90s classic. Well, it's not gonna be it's not gonna be an out vinyl, but it's the Judy Bats. This is called Down in the Shacks Where the Satellite Dishes Grow. There we go. That's a little bit better. Um, that's good. It's gonna get there, I think. Hey, if I'm gonna start doing this, don't worry, I will get a better camera. But we're going to start doing this on a regular basis. But Down in the Shacks Where the Satellite Dishes Grow, it is still my favorite album of the 1990s. And it's not exactly one that a lot of people mention. It's got a cover of Animal Farm on there from the Kinks, but the rest of it is all original stuff. And it's one of those albums that actually kind of captures where it's from. The band was from Tennessee, They had done an EP before then, another album called Native Son. Their big hit, um, their big hit came after this album, which was Ugly on the Outside. Came on the next album after this one, and then after that they kind of broke up. But um, but that album, Down in the Shacks Where Satellite Dishes Grow, is my definitely my favorite from the 1990s. A record cover that I would love to be a part of. I have absolutely no idea what's going on here. This is Cook's Tour of High Fidelity. It's a record of sound effects. And well, obviously I like to be there because it looks like somebody is imbibing in some substances at some point. And there's brunettes and bikinis. So everything is kind of going well on that thing. Um, of course, then I would get yelled at for the wife for being involved in all that too. Record that feels like it's a greatest hits record. Huey Lewis and the News, sports. Well, the reason is, well, remember back in the 1980s, about every single song off of this got played on the radio. Heart of Rock and Roll, Heart and Soul, I Want a New Drug, Walking on a Thin Line, If This Is It. And the stuff that's not on the stuff that wasn't played on the radio was on the B-sides of all these singles for the most part, except for a couple of them I think that might have been from the B-sides that were songs from the previous albums. The only one I don't think that got on there was Honky Tonk Blues as a B-side, or I might even be wrong on that because, well, yeah, this is one of those albums from the time there every single thing pretty much got released off of it. And it is a solid album. It's not like he was the most creative or anything like that, but it's still a solid album, one of my favorites from the 1990, I mean from the 1980s. And then finally an album released in 1974. I'm gonna go with my favorite Blue Oyster Cult album, Secret Treaties. And because it's got astronomy on it. It's also got a lot of other stuff on it. It's probably the one other than Imaginos that's most populated with Imaginos stuff. So, and of the black and white era, it is the best one. It's where they kind of started coming together with a sound. Then by the time the next album came out, they kind of streamlined the sound, even though they still remained a good band for a good portion of their and well until they started falling apart a bit after Fire of Unknown Origin. But yeah, last three albums they've had over the last last almost 30 years now have actually been pretty good. So there you have it. That is everything from my VinylTag presentation. Like I said, I know some of it I really need to get a better camera and everything here if I'm going to be doing this on a regular basis. We'll see. And of course I know I'm not exactly the most handsome person to look at, but hopefully make up for it with all the great records and everything here. Thank you for checking this out if you decided to sit through the whole thing, and I hope you have a great time out there collecting.